In this video, we'll be taking a look at 5 MLB games happening on May 18, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games. So 10 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 5 MLB games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start. If you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. When the Tampa Bay Rays come into a game riding the kind of wave they're on right now, you almost have to do a double take at the standings. The Rays just became the first American League team to hit 30 wins, sitting at 30-15, and they're looking like the version of themselves that used to give the entire American League East nightmares. Now they're heading back inside the dome, and that matters more than people realize. Tropicana Field has been their fortress, the kind of place where the catwalks tease batted balls, the foul ground swallows pop-ups, and the lighting plays tricks even after the renovation. Pair that with a Baltimore squad that's been wandering through May like they forgot where they put the keys, and the picture gets even clearer. The Orioles are sitting at 21-26, fresh off another rough series in Washington, and the only reason they aren't deeper in the hole is because Gunnar Henderson finally remembered he's Gunnar Henderson on Sunday afternoon. But here's the part that really tips this matchup. The lefty on the bump for Tampa Bay is Shane McClanahan, and the version we've been seeing lately is borderline scary. He's been on a scoreless streak that stretched past 16 innings. His command is sharpening up start by start, and he's running an earned run average that already starts with a 2. Meanwhile, the lefty towing the rubber for Baltimore is Trevor Rogers, and his story right now is just brutal. He came back from an illness that put him on the injured list, took the mound against the Yankees in his return, and got absolutely teed off on for 6 runs in 4 innings. The Orioles manager Craig Albernaz publicly said they aren't going to be reckless with him, which is basically code for short leash, which is basically code for the bullpen door swinging open early. And that Baltimore bullpen, after a stretch of short starts and injuries to arms like Cade Povich and Grant Wolfram, is gassed and patched together in a way that doesn't survive in this building. Add in the fact that Baltimore has been allergic to left-handed starters in 2026. The offense has been scoring 3 or fewer runs in something like 8 of their past 9 games, and Pete Alonso in the middle of that order still hasn't found a rhythm, and the whole thing starts to feel like a mismatch with a capital M. Kevin Cash gets his lefty ace at home, in a park built to make his life easier, against a team that hasn't figured out how to hit lefties or score early all season long. As our first pick for this matchup, the Tampa Bay Rays money line is our full game side pick. Now flip the lens to the total, because this is where the matchup gets even juicier in a low-scoring kind of way. Tropicana Field is one of the most pitcher-friendly buildings in all of baseball, historically suppressing offense by close to 8%, and the renovated version with the fresh turf and the same goofy dimensions hasn't exactly turned into a launching pad in 2026. The Rays are 5th in the majors in team earned run average, which tells you their staff has been doing the kind of dirty work that travels well even on the road, and now they get to do it in their own backyard. Shane McClanahan in particular has been spinning zeros, and even when he gets pulled early because of pitch counts as he builds back up from the injury layoff, the Rays are handing the baton to a closer by committee that reads like a horror movie for opposing hitters. Edwin Uceta, Griffin Jax, Garrett Cleavinger, Brian Baker, that's 4 arms who can each shut a door, and Kevin Cash gets to mix and match based on whoever Baltimore sends up next. On the other side, Trevor Rogers has been roughed up lately, but the Orioles' bats are the real story here because they've been ice cold for 2 solid weeks. 3 or fewer runs in 8 of the past 9 games is not a slump, that's a pattern, and that pattern doesn't suddenly fix itself against a lefty starter inside a dome that swallows fly balls. Gunnar Henderson popped a homer on Sunday, sure, but he's still running a sub.700 OPS for the season, and the rest of the lineup beyond Adley Rutschman and Taylor Ward has been giving up at bats they want back. Even Junior Caminero and Yandy Diaz, who have been mashing for Tampa Bay, tend to do most of their damage in spurts rather than 10-run explosions inside this particular building. Both starters are lefties, both bullpens project to see plenty of action, and one of those bullpens is a fully stocked Rays committee while the other is a Baltimore unit running on fumes after Trevor Rogers most likely gives them 4 or 5 at best. Even if Baltimore scratches across a few runs the way teams sometimes do against a tired pen, the Rays' offense going up against Rodgers and a stretched-out Baltimore staff inside a pitcher's park doesn't scream crooked numbers either. The shape of this game looks like 5s and 6s total, not 8s and 9s, and the way the Trop has been playing in 2026 just reinforces that lean. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Cleveland Guardians versus Detroit Tigers. All right, picture this scene with me. A team comes rolling into the start of a 4-game series at home carrying more bad news than a Sunday morning hangover. The reigning back-to-back Cy Young winner, gone, parked on the 15-day list after surgery to clean out his elbow earlier this month. The future Hall of Famer they handed a massive deal to anchor the rotation, stuck on the 60-day with a cranky hip that's now been barking since April. The young flamethrower who was supposed to be the next big arm, already cooked for the year, recovering from Tommy John, and not expected back until August. And the latest body to drop, a young righty who took a 107-mile-an-hour comebacker off his forearm on Friday, just got tossed onto the 15-day list before he could even line up his next outing. That's Detroit right now, 4 major arms missing, and they're hosting a Cleveland club that's been quietly doing the thing nobody picked them to do. The Guardians sit on top of the American League Central at 24-22, having won 7 of their last 10, and they keep finding ways to win games that the box score says they probably shouldn't. Coming into 2026, the consensus take was that Cleveland was a sub-500 team with a thin lineup and a back-end rotation full of question marks. Instead, Stephen Vogel's group has been the most annoying team in the division, scrappy at bats, aggressive on the bases, and pitching that keeps showing up even when the offense decides to take the night off. Now flip it around and look at what Detroit's been doing with the bat lately. The Tigers' offense has gone completely sideways in the last week, the kind of stretch where balls aren't finding grass and even the hot hitters look like they're carrying a piano up the third baseline. Their first baseman, the guy they need to drive the middle of the order, is hitting in the 130s this month with a strikeout rate that would embarrass a Little League whiff machine. Detroit just got walked off by the Mets, lost a 1-0 heartbreaker to Boston on Friday, dropped a 2-1 extra innings game on Saturday, and got handled 4-1 on Sunday afternoon. That's 3 runs across their last 3 games combined, against pitching staffs that frankly aren't that scary on paper. This isn't a one-game thing. This is a team-wide funk, and they're walking into it with a rotation held together by duct tape and prayer. Now on paper, the mound matchup tilts toward Detroit because Framber Valdez has the better resume and the better track record. But Valdez is in his own weird little stretch in a new uniform. He had a complete nightmare of an outing earlier this month against Boston, giving up 10 runs in barely 3 innings, which is the kind of line that lives in your head for a few starts whether you want it to or not. He's been good at Comerica historically, sure, but the broader picture is a left-hander still trying to find rhythm with a new defense, a new catcher, and a new team that hasn't been catching the ball cleanly when it matters most. Slade Cecconi for Cleveland gets buried in all the model previews because his season-earned run average looks rough, and yeah, the first month was ugly. But the recent trend line is the part nobody's talking about. His last time out in long relief against the Royals, he gave the Guardians 5 and a third innings and only allowed 2 runs. The start before that, against the Angels, he punched out 7 hitters in 4 scoreless innings and reportedly had Stephen Vogt fighting to keep him in the game. He's the same guy who threw 7 shutout innings against the A's last summer and posted quality starts in 5 of 7 outings down the stretch in 2025, so the talent and the upside are absolutely still in there. Pair that with an opposing offense that looks like it forgot the launch codes, and you've got a really sneaky competitive outing brewing from a starter the market's already left for dead. There's also the plus money piece, and it matters in spots like this. At a number floating around plus 127, you're being paid a premium to back a team that's been outright better than its opponent this entire month, against a wounded roster that's currently rearranging deck chairs. Cleveland's road number, their bullpen, their recent form, the injury report on the other side, and the price you're getting all paint the same picture. A J. Hinch is going to be running lineup combinations he didn't expect to run in May. And those experiments rarely pop the first night. The narrative says you should be scared of the home team, but the narrative hasn't been watching this Tigers team try to score a run for a week. As our first pick for this matchup, the Cleveland Guardians money line is our full game side pick. Okay, second piece, and this one almost writes itself if you've been paying any attention to either of these clubs. Comerica Park isn't the cavernous run-suppressing fortress it was 20 years ago, but it's still a yard that punishes pull-side fly balls, eats warning track contact for breakfast, and rewards pitchers who pound the bottom of the zone, which, conveniently, happens to be the entire identity of the guy starting for the Tigers tonight. Valdez has one of the highest career ground ball rates of any modern starter, the type of pitcher who lives on a sinker and a curveball that hitters bury into the dirt. He's pitched at Comerica enough times to have a career earned run average under 4 inside its walls, and he's already got 2 career complete games here, which is its own kind of flex when most starters can't crack 6 innings these days. On a night with a moderate Michigan wind and a sub-80-degree game time temp, that profile gets even nastier. On the other side, Cecconi gives up the long ball more than you'd like, no argument, but he's also throwing in a park that's historically been one of the harder yards in the American League to leave. Comerica's right center is functionally a graveyard for warning track fly balls, and a lot of Cecconi's loud contact tends to find gloves in big outfields. Even on his rough nights, he's been giving up runs because of walks and timing, not because batters are putting up XBAs of 500 against him. Now stack the 2 offenses next to each other and tell me where the runs are supposed to come from. Cleveland ranks near the basement of the league in slugging percentage and near the bottom in hard hit rate, and they've been a station-to-station outfit all year, manufacturing crooked numbers off walks, infield singles, and Jose Ramirez putting on a base-running clinic. That's not a profile that just suddenly drops 8 runs on a left-handed sinker baller at a pitcher's park in May. Detroit, meanwhile, looks even worse lately. Their bats have been ice cold for a week plus, multiple regulars are in deep slumps, the power switch appears to have a piece of tape over it, and their numbers in May have fallen off a cliff. Both teams sit below the league average in runs scored per game on the season, and right now they're both trending in the wrong direction. The wind forecast for first pitch is in the neighborhood of 20 miles per hour at game time, and at Comerica in mid-May, that often whips across the open bowl in ways that knock down would-be home runs. Mid-70s temperature, low chance of rain, evening start under the lights. None of that screams crooked numbers and shootout vibes. The 8.5 number feels like it was set for a generic American League Central matchup at this park, before the books fully baked in just how miserably the Tigers' bats have been performing. When you combine a sinker baller who owns this stadium, a Cleveland lineup that doesn't slug, a Detroit lineup currently allergic to scoring, a deep ballpark, and wind that's not helping the over, you're looking at a recipe for the kind of 3-2, 4-1, 6-3 game that lives comfortably underneath this number. The public agrees with us on this one too. The Sportsbook Review Trend Tracker has roughly 60% of bettors and the heavier money flowing to the underside. The season total trends for both clubs lean that direction, and the matchup model is highlighting the under as the side of value. When the park, the pitching matchup, the recent form, the weather, and the public all point the same direction, sometimes the smart move is to just stop overthinking it and ride the obvious read. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Atlanta Braves versus Miami Marlins. Picture a heavyweight champion strolling into the building while the other corner is still trying to find their mouth guard. That's pretty much the energy walking into this Monday night opener in South Florida. One of these clubs has set the tone for the entire National League since the calendar flipped to April, and the other has been chasing its own identity in a division that's quickly turning into a one-horse race. The visitors from Georgia have been doing more than just winning. They've been winning every flavor of baseball you can imagine. Blowouts, late comebacks, pitchers' duels, walk-offs on Tuesdays in front of weird crowds. They've checked every box on the menu. They were the first team in the entire sport to reach 30 wins this year, and they've done it while leading the league in earned run average and parking themselves near the top of the league in nearly every offensive category that actually matters. Meanwhile, the home side keeps showing up to the fight, taking a couple of rounds, then losing the decision on the back end of games. The bullpen down in Miami has been the kind of late-night horror movie that makes you turn off the TV and go to bed early. Their ninth-inning option has been particularly rough around the edges, the kind of usage pattern that turns small leads into shrugged-shoulder losses, and that pattern has stained an otherwise respectable starting pitching unit. There's also the small matter of recent history between these two clubs, because when they last shared a field back in mid-April up at Truist Park, the team flying in tonight already grabbed the series 2-1. The Braves have also been a far better team away from home than at home this season, which flips the usual road team narrative right on its head. Now, you'll hear plenty about how the Marlins have a legitimate starter on the bump for Game 1, and that's fair. He's been one of the quieter breakouts of the season, with a slider that turns big league hitters into little league hitters when it's working. But this isn't a one-inning bout, it's a full 9, and the Braves have built the kind of roster that punishes one mistake and forces you to be perfect for 9 innings. You don't get to be perfect for 9 innings against the team with the best run differential in baseball, the deepest bullpen depth chart in the league, and a manager who's pushed all the right buttons in his first year on the bench. Add to that the fact that the Atlanta club has actually played better since losing their 5-time All-Star to the hamstring injured list, and you start to realize this lineup is firing without the cleanup hitter most rotations build their plan around. The Marlins are 6 games under 500, 21-26 on the year, coming off a series where they bounced between a lopsided loss and a wild win and basically embodied everything that's wrong with their season in 3 days. The Braves come in at 32-15, looking less like a hot start and more like a juggernaut that's just getting warmed up. This is a money pick, not a moneymaker, and that's fine, because in May, the smart play is the obvious play when the obvious play keeps cashing. As our first pick for this matchup, the Atlanta Braves money line is our full game side pick. There's something about Lone Depot Park that just doesn't get along with a fence, particularly under the closed roof on a humid Florida night. The building sits at sea level, the air is heavy and damp, and even after they brought the fences in twice over the past decade, fly balls in this stadium still die where good intentions go to retire. Right-handed power gets stuck in molasses here, and the outfield gaps remain deep enough that doubles and triples replace what would be home runs in 9 other ballparks. That matters tonight because both lineups lean heavily right-handed through the heart of the order, which is exactly the swing profile this venue gives the cold shoulder. Then there's the pitching matchup itself, which is genuinely one of the more interesting under-the-radar duels on Monday's slate. The young right-hander climbing through Atlanta's rotation has been the kind of steady, low walk, sequencing savvy presence that doesn't beat himself, working with a deep arsenal and a knack for keeping the ball on the ground. On the Marlins side, you've got a starter putting together one of the quieter breakouts in the National League, sitting in the low 3 earned run average range, missing bats at an elite clip, and finally healthy enough to take the ball every 5th day without restriction. 2 starters in form, both with sub-3.5 earned run averages, both capable of chewing 6+ innings on a Monday night in May. That's a recipe for a chess match, not a slugfest. The home offense has cooled significantly from their scorching April start, when they briefly flirted with the top 5 in runs scored. That bat-to-ball lineup is built around contact and speed at the top, the kind of group that strings together singles but rarely puts up the crooked numbers that blow open totals. The road offense, while elite on the season, has actually gone through a noticeably uneven stretch over the past week, including a shutout loss just a few days ago at home. Pair that with the absence of one of the most dangerous swings in their batting order, and you've got a visiting lineup that's far more likely to chip away than to flip the scoreboard upside down. The bullpens, despite Miami's late-inning closer drama, have actually both ranked inside the top half of the league in earned run average, which is another quiet vote for fewer runs after the starters check out. The roof, the humidity, the dimensions, the starters, the cooled-off bats, the missing power threat, the matchup history at this particular building, every breadcrumb on this trail points in the same direction. You'll hear people point to the April series between these teams as evidence the bats will fly. And yes, those games did go over the total. But those games were played 400 miles north in a different ballpark, with a different cast of starting pitchers, and one of them was a 10-4 laugher fueled by Marlins hitters who haven't swung the bat like that since. This is a different building, a different night, 2 arms in form, and a season tipping toward a quieter rhythm offensively in the National League East. A reasonable game script reads something like 2 starters going 6, a brief late-inning storm if one team catches a hot half-inning, and a final score that lands somewhere in the 4-6 runs apiece neighborhood. That math doesn't reach the line the books have laid out tonight. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Cincinnati Reds versus Philadelphia Phillies. The way this matchup sets up, you've got 2 teams meeting at very different points on the emotional roller coaster. Philadelphia spent the first month of the season looking like a club that had completely forgotten how to play baseball. They started 9-19, the worst record in the National League, the kind of slump that gets a manager fired, and that's exactly what happened. Rob Thompson was shown the door, Don Mattingly slid over from his bench coach seat into the interim chair, and the Phillies caught fire. They ripped off 10 wins in 13 games, 4 straight series wins for the first time since 1984, and the narrative around them flipped overnight. Here's where the timing piece gets interesting though, because Philadelphia still sits right at 23-23. A hot stretch can paper over a lot of things, but the underlying issues, especially at the back end of their rotation, haven't gone anywhere. That rotation is the wrinkle that turns this whole game into a value spot. Andrew Painter is the future of the franchise, the prospect Philadelphia waited years for through Tommy John surgery and rehab, and his early returns have been a reality check. He's been roughed up in most of his recent outings, his fastball command has wavered, and the league has clearly figured out his secondary mix faster than anyone expected. Citizens Bank Park is the last place you want to be standing on the mound when your stuff isn't sharp. Cincinnati comes in carrying a different kind of energy, the type that only shows up after a team gets punched in the mouth and stays on its feet. They survived an 8-game losing streak that dropped them from first in the Central all the way to the cellar, and the easy thing would have been to fold. Instead, they ripped off back-to-back wins over Houston to close out their last series, including a clean shutout. Terry Francona has been navigating a hospital ward of an injury list, missing Hunter Green, Rhett Lauder, and Eugenio Suarez, among others, yet the Reds keep clawing. Nick Lodolo gets the ball here, returning from a blister problem that's nagged him, but the lefty's deception is exactly the kind of look that gives this Phillies lineup pause. Add the plus number Cincinnati is carrying on the money line, and the underdog narrative is doing a lot of heavy lifting for the wrong side. The market hasn't fully caught up to the idea that Philadelphia's recent surge might be more vibes than vital signs. As our first pick for this matchup, the Cincinnati Reds money line is our full game side pick. The total is where this game tells you exactly what it wants to be. Start with the venue, Citizens Bank Park, a ballpark that practically begs fly balls to leave the yard. The dimensions are inviting, the May air helps the ball travel, and both lineups have the kind of pop that punishes any pitcher who leaves something flat. Philadelphia's offense isn't just hot, it's borderline scorching. Kyle Schwarber tied a franchise record by going deep in 5 consecutive games, sitting at 17 home runs and matching Aaron Judge for the Major League lead. Bryce Harper is locked in, Trea Turner is doing Trea Turner things, JT Realmuto is finding the barrel again, and Brandon Marsh has been hitting like a man possessed at the top of that order. This isn't a lineup that nibbles at pitches, this is a lineup that hunts mistakes and crushes them. Cincinnati's bats aren't sleeping either, even with all the injury noise. Sal Stewart has emerged as a legitimate middle-of-the-order presence, Ellie De La Cruz is doing damage on contact, and the recent addition of Will Myers gives them another veteran threat. Even during their rough stretch, the Reds were finding ways to put crooked numbers on the board, scoring 5 in that shutout win over Houston. Now layer the pitching matchup on top of all that lumber. Andrew Painter has been giving up runs in big chunks rather than slow drips, surrendering multiple runs in most of his recent starts, and he's facing a Cincinnati lineup that doesn't strike out at the rate rookies typically need to survive. Nick Lodolo coming off a blister issue is another concern, because that kind of injury limits how comfortably a pitcher can throw his slider, which is exactly the pitch lefties lean on to dispatch right-handed power. Both bullpens are stretched thin too, with each side navigating recent injured list moves and trying to squeeze innings out of arms that weren't built to carry this much weight in early May. When you stack a hitter's park with 2 heating-up lineups, 2 starters who've shown clear vulnerability, and 2 patched-together bullpens behind them, the scoreboard usually keeps ticking. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full-game total pick. New York Mets versus Washington Nationals. Picture this for a second. The Mets are a smoldering wreck. 18-26, dead last in the National League East, the worst record in all of baseball, and an injured list so crowded it looks like a triage tent. Francisco Lindor is shelved with a strained calf. Francisco Alvarez just had knee surgery and is gone for the next 2 months. Jorge Polanco still can't get that Achilles right. Luis Robert Jr. is dealing with a back issue, and Kodai Senga remains nowhere near a mound. Carlos Mendoza is essentially running out a Triple-A roster 4 nights a week, and Washington has already roughed this group up earlier in the season with a 14-run beatdown back in late April. So why on earth would anyone touch New York on the road in this spot? 2 words: Christian Scott. Forget that bizarre April debut where he walked 5 Twins in an inning and looked like he'd never seen a strike zone before. That guy is gone. The version of Scott who's been climbing the bump these past 3 weeks is something else entirely. A kid who came back from a hybrid Tommy John procedure with 8 pounds of new muscle, 2 extra ticks on the fastball, a brand new cutter cooked up during rehab with Drew Smith, and a sweeper that breaks like it's being yanked on a string. 3 starts since the meltdown, a 3.27 earned run average, a 1.18 WHIP, 15 punchouts in 11 innings, and Mendoza has been gushing about him on every post-game podium. The arm across the diamond is Jake Irvin, and Irvin's calling card is, well, allowing souvenirs. The man led American League of Major League Baseball in home runs surrendered last season with 38, and he's been doing his best to defend that crown in 2026 with an earned run average hovering north of 5 and an expected earned run average even uglier than the real one. Juan Soto looks healthy again after the calf scare. Bo Bichette is locked in at short. Mark Vientos has thumped. Marcus Semien knows the American League East drills. And even rookie call-up Carson Bench has been ripping the ball during his early cameos. The Mets are getting priced as underdogs because the public reads the standings and the headlines and stops there, but the actual pitching matchup, the only thing that matters in baseball on any given night, tilts the other direction. A revitalized arm with a clean fastball, a hungry team with desperation soaking every at-bat, and a Washington club that's been alternating fireworks with faceplants all month. That's a value spot whether the betting public wants to admit it or not. As our first pick for this matchup, the New York Mets money line is our full game side pick. Now keep your seat, because the run-scoring conversation is even juicier. Pull up the Monday forecast for Washington and you'll find 95 degrees of muggy mid-May swelter, the kind of soup-thick air where every fly ball gains 5 feet of carry and outfielders start praying for clouds. That's pure ballpark fuel. Pair it with 2 pitching staffs that are equal parts duct tape and prayer. Washington's bullpen finished last season with the actual worst earned run average in baseball, and the front office did almost nothing about it over the winter, so the same arms are still out there trying to plug holes with whatever they've got. New York's relief corps isn't much steadier, especially now that Clay Holmes is on the shelf with a broken fibula and the rest of the group has been logging frequent flyer miles trying to mop up losing efforts night after night. Scott, no matter how filthy his stuff is still on a hard pitch count after the elbow rebuild. 80 pitches, maybe 90, and he's done, which means middle relief is almost guaranteed to crack the door open by the 5th or 6th. Once that door swings, the runs tend to come in waves. And Irvin, he's the guy who turns baseballs into airplanes, and the Nationals' offense behind him has been on an absolute heater, dropping 15 on the Twins, 14 on these same Mets back on April 29th, 10 on the Reds just days ago, with James Wood leading the National League in homers and C.J. Abrams flirting with a .300 average and grand slams falling off his bat. The Mets lineup might look gutted, but Soto, Bichette, Vientos, Semien, that's still 4 legitimate threats who can punish a hanging slider into the bullpen. Nationals park grades out as a basically neutral environment, but you're not pricing the venue tonight. You're pricing the weather, the wind off the Anacostia, 2 leaky bullpens, 2 streaky bats per side, 2 starters with very different problems but the same likelihood of getting pulled before they want to be, and a closing line that the market always underbakes when one team is this bad on paper. When everything stacks like this, fading scoring is like trying to hold back a faucet with a paper towel. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.